Hey, what's going on? Sean here with another episode of Locked On Raptors from a brand new studio, baby. I got the high energy on today's podcast, despite being up until about 3 a.m., setting all this stuff up, nearly breaking my finger in this here beautiful mic arm. Either way, we've got a big show today. Nick Nurse has a loaded doghouse right now. Chris Boucher and Malachi Flynn, both out of favor, it seems, with Nick Nurse in his comments yesterday, not really suggesting that they're on their way out of the doghouse anytime soon. We're going to discuss whether or not Flynn and Boucher should be playing more on today's show. We're also going to talk about the Pacers as the Raptors get set for 2 games against Indiana this week, both on Wednesday and then on Saturday, with a game against the Magic sandwiched in between. And we're going to get into all of that with Vivek Jacob, our pal from Raptors.com. That's coming up right now.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1044 of Locked On Raptors for, Wednesday, October the 27th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley of RaptorsHQ.com. You can find me on Twitter, as always, at WoodleySean. You can find the show at Locked On Raptors. And, of course, you can find the podcast free on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Please subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. It is very much appreciated when you take the time to do that. So go ahead and do it now. Also, a big thank you for making us your first listen of the day. On today's show, we are talking about Nick Nurse's doghouse, baby. Malachi Flynn, Chris Boucher, not exactly in favor with the head coach of your Toronto Raptors. We're going to talk about whether that's fair, whether we'd like to see them back in anytime soon here. We will get to that. We're also going to tee up the Pacers game as the Raptors take on Indiana tonight. And we're also going to talk about if we were Nick Nurse, if we were in his shoes, what would our doghouse look like? Would we have any other players maybe fighting and scrapping for minutes that they're not going to get anytime soon? Who would be taking late night shots in our own coaching circle? Either way, Vivek Jacob from Raptors.com is here. Big V, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about Nick Nurse's doghouse. Happy belated birthday to you.
Thanks, dude. Did you say happy birthday to Andrea Bargnani, though? That's the most important thing.
Well, I heard reports that his IG is now off the grid, so
it is. It's very disappointing. It's a bad state of affairs. How does he know that I wish him happy birthday? It's disappointing times, but he's got other things to do. He's an astronaut. He's a chemist. He's a winemaker. He's all of these things, and I just wish him well. For my honeymoon, we're thinking about maybe going to Italy, and I'm actually pushing for that just because I want to go
tracking down Andrea Bargnani.
Yeah, I just want to find him and go fishing with him and eat some fish in a boat with Andrea Bargnani. I'm sure that will not be creepy at all when I show up to him and say, hey, happy birthday.
I mean, the number one thing you have to do is make sure you pack some primo pasta for him.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's missing the flavors of home. Good Lord. All right. As promised, we're going to talk about the doghouse. Let's begin with Malachi Flynn and Chris Boucher. Of course, Chris Boucher has been a constant subject of scorn for Nick Nurse over the last week or so. It feels like the season is much older than just a week, by the way. Oh my God. But either way, it seems as though he is out of favor. He's lost his minutes in the second half quite frequently here. Delano Banton kind of subbing in to that Chris Boucher role and doing quite well, I might add, in those minutes. And then Malachi Flynn, of course, has played 3 minutes all season long, I believe all in garbage time. And so it's hard to be those guys right now. I don't know. Let's start with Chris Boucher, because he's been sort of the bigger topic of conversation with Nick Nurse, at least. I think Raptors fans are maybe more clamoring for Malachi Flynn. We'll get to that in a sec. But Chris Boucher, where are you at with him? Should he be part of this rotation right now? Are they missing any sort of element he provides? Or are you with Nick Nurse and thinking he hasn't really been that good and there are other guys more deserving of minutes?
He hasn't been good. I think Nick Nurse would love to have his scoring punch and, his shot blocking and rebounding, but he has not been good. I don't think and then I forget if we talked about this sort of off the record or on a podcast episode, but I always felt coming into this season that this might be the year that he gets sort of found out a little bit. Yeah. And last year he was still sort of an unknown, and he was getting a lot of those pick and pop opportunities, and he came on strong and he really had a great year. But even when he had those big games, it wasn't like it was impacting the Raptors winning.
Mhm.
And I think that's what Nick Nurse wants to see more than anything. It's like, and that's exactly what he said, right? Like Chris Boucher needs to play like there's more to his game than a jump shot.
Yeah.
And so when he's taking contested shots and not making them, what else is he bringing to the table? And I think that's what Boucher is struggling with right now, to
Mhm.
be an impact player. And what he's also running up against is the fact that the Raptors got deeper, and there
Yeah.
are impact players to play ahead of him.
Yeah, I am with you as well. I don't think Chris Boucher warrants a ton of rope right now. I mean, you throw him in the first half. I don't mind that. See if he's cooking, because he is the kind of guy where, it takes one press to the hand of the kettle and you know if it's hot or not. And, sometimes it might scorch you because he's going to go off for 38 and 19 or something like that. Again, that game last year against the Bulls came in a loss. So I think that kind of goes to your point that you just made there, Big V. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of competition for front court spots right now, and it's only going to get steeper when Pascal Siakam comes back. Like, I could see them starting without any centers, and then it's Birch, Precious, Boucher fighting for those minutes. Yuta Watanabe kind of as a 4 as well. He can kind of slide anywhere between 2 and 4. I think. I don't think positions are kind of meaningless with Yuta, but still, there's competition now. It's only going to get steeper as the Raptors get healthier. And look, there will be other injuries. There will be other sort of slumps for guys. And I think there's being a lot made of rotation patterns through 4 games. It's too early to make any sort of judgment about Nick Nurse's rotations right now. He's got a lot of guys to work with. He's got a lot of experimentation to do, and a lot of guys have earned those minutes. So I'm not like very angry or anything like that Malachi Flynn's not playing 30 minutes a game 4 games into the season. I don't think he was ever going to play 30 minutes, but I'm being exaggeratory for effect. Did I just make up a word? I think I did. Either way, I think Boucher, he'll get his moments. He'll have his games where he pops. I think, we can get into some ways that we can maybe sort of look to see the Raptors unleash both Boucher and Flynn. But let's talk about Flynn here for a second. I don't have a problem with making a young guy earn minutes. I know he won Rookie of the Month last year. I know he showed some really good signs in Summer League. I also think he has barely played like a normal season. His player of the month, Rookie of the Month came during a garbage time month in a garbage time season for the Raptors. I don't know how much you can put into that last year and say, okay, well, that month now deems him, earning of 22 minutes a game as the backup point guard who runs the show. I just don't think it works that way. And I think if he's not playing well in the preseason or in practice or whatever it is, like, I'm sure Nick Nurse is seeing something that we're not behind the scenes as well. Are you as perturbed as a lot of folks seem to be that Malachi Flynn is still out of Nick Nurse's rotation, very clearly behind Goran Dragic in the point guard hierarchy, and then also losing minutes to Svi Mihailuk and whoever else subs in those guard spots?
I think Nick Nurse is validated when the case for Malachi Flynn to play is that Goran Dragic sucks right now.
Right.
It's not, hey, Malachi was awesome in the preseason. Hey, Malachi got 5 minutes there. He was awesome. Let's see more of him. The guy who has that case is Delano Banton.
Yep.
And so for Malachi Flynn, I think as a second-year player, I'm a big fan of his game, and I was not impressed in preseason. And so if those are the struggles that are continuing when they're running practice, I can see why he's being left off the court in game. So I do think that Goran Dragic is getting, a bit of a veteran's benefit, and they're allowing him to play through some stuff because he's been bad. I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat that. He has been bad, but
I'll try. Don't worry, it's coming.
But I think with a veteran like him, there's a belief that, once he plays through some stuff, he'll be able to contribute in a way that is meaningful. And maybe that's worth pursuing more than what Malachi is showing in practice right now. And so it's a good challenge to Malachi. It's really important that he can push the ball. It's really important that he shoots the ball well. And if those two things aren't being conveyed in practice, then I don't think he's going to get on the court. Now, maybe there's some time that opens up once the Raptors 905 start their season.
Mhm.
Whether it's him going down there or whether it's Delano going down there, and now you've got more spots opening up in the rotation with the Raptors. But uh, yeah, I think it's a tough go for Malachi right now, and whatever work he's putting in, I hope it pays off.
I do too, because I think eventually Malachi Flynn is going to be the backup point guard for this version of the team. Like, I think by season's end, whether it's because Dragic gets traded or because Flynn just earns the minutes, he's going to have that spot. I think, again, it's too early to be like, oh no, is Nick Nurse going to break Malachi Flynn because he hasn't played him in 4 games? Like, that's just not how it works. I think it's totally reasonable to think maybe he could use some seasoning down in the 905, the seasoning he didn't get last year when he was called back from the G League bubble after like 2 games of looking incredible and was forced to play with a ragtag crew where there were like 7 healthy players. I think there's an argument to be made that, okay, maybe the long-term 905 play here is Banton. Maybe he goes down later in the season or something like that. But right now, Banton looks like he's helping the NBA team more than Malachi Flynn is. And I think Malachi Flynn could use the sort of seasoning you get from playing 34 minutes a game with the G League and running your own offense and being the guy. Maybe he can kind of tap into some of his more gunner tendencies, which I think are going to be the thing that makes him a valuable player because he's got that quick trigger finger, because he's got that good 3-point stroke, both as a pull up and a catch and shoot guy. I think, just getting some 905 seasoning would not be the worst thing in the world for a month or so before you bring him back up and reinsert him into the rotation. So, that's one way you could play the Flynn thing. The other way is just like wait for something to happen. Maybe there's an injury. Maybe Svi falls out of favor because he has not been very good so far. We'll get to that in a sec. But I think it's far too early to be like sounding alarm bells about Nurse's management of Malachi Flynn. He's still basically a rookie. There's not a lot of sort of tape and track record for him. So I don't mind a little bit of tough love in terms of just like making him earn the spot. I think it's totally fine. It's an 82-game season. There's plenty of time for him to earn said spot. And I think it's totally fair to give Goran Dragic all the benefit of the doubt as well, because he's a veteran. He's good when he's out there. Even when he's like bricking layups, which he's done quite a bit, like he's getting into the teeth of the defense. He's one of the few guys on the team with blow-by ability. That stuff will come. I don't think Goran Dragic forgot how to play basketball over the course of the offseason while he was lamenting Toronto from his Slovenian abode. So we will continue on here in a sec here, Big V. I want to talk about ways that maybe the Raptors can kind of open up Flynn and Boucher, ways that they could kind of utilize them, probably more Boucher right now than Flynn. We'll get to that. And I also want to sort of sort through who should be on our own personal doghouses. Who do you think is maybe less deserving of minutes than they are currently getting? We'll get to that in 1 second here. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at SweatBlock. And I got to tell you, SweatBlock is one of the best products I've ever tried through this podcast. And we've had a lot of products come through the house with this podcast. It's been going around for like 5 years and we get lots of samples and whatnot. And I got to tell you, SweatBlock has literally changed my life because I can wear all the colors in the rainbow again. I used to have to wear like black and dark blue, like this sweater here. And it was a nightmare because I wanted to wear pastels, baby. I wanted to wear some like forest green, but I always had the fear that I was going to sweat through because I'm an excessive sweater. And that's just the way it is. It's just how my grad pictures were ruined because I sweat too much on grad day. That's how bad it is. But guess what? SweatBlock with their antiperspirant wipes and their dry shirt guarantee have made it so that I never have to worry about which color I'm going to wear again. I never have to worry about pitting out. No matter the situation, I just use their SweatBlock antiperspirant wipe before I go to bed, wipe it on, wash in the morning, and then I go about my day. And I can go up to 7 days without experiencing sweating in those regions. It's not just for your armpits as well. You can do your chest, back, feet, hands, use it anywhere. And I mean anywhere that sweats. It is doctor created and doctor recommended. And it is Sean recommended as well. If you or someone you care about is dealing with excessive sweat, you have to check out SweatBlock. Get it today for 20% off at sweatblock.com with the promo code LOCKEDON or at Amazon and CVS. But you get that promo code when you go to the website. So just go to the source, baby. All right, we continue on here. Thank you for making us once again your first listen of the day. Vivek Jacob. Let's talk about how they can potentially open up Chris Boucher and Malachi Flynn and maybe make it so their minutes are more productive. This might be a lost cause with Flynn. This might be an off-court thing. He might need to take, many more late-night shots before he gets an opportunity with Nick Nurse. But with Chris Boucher, the opportunity is going to be there, it seems. He's getting those looks in the first half. Is there a way the Raptors are using him that's maybe kind of undercutting what he does well? Is there maybe like a set of players you would play him with to potentially unlock what Chris Boucher can do well? How would you go about this Chris Boucher situation if you're Nick Nurse to try to maybe put him in a better position to succeed? Or do you think Nurse is putting him in a fine position to succeed right now and he's just not executing?
Well, I definitely think he just flat out needs to play better. When people talk about Scotty Barnes knowing how to play, I don't know if Chris Boucher is quite there yet in terms of understanding the nuances of the game. So I think that part of it is lacking. But, in terms of opening him up, I do wonder if there's something to be gained from just having Precious with him more as opposed to Kem Birch. I know early on in the season, Kem Birch and Chris Boucher had some nice minutes, but I feel like Boucher, I think, is at his best when there's a bit more chaos on the court. And I think Precious sort of lends to that a bit more. And I think of, Precious sort of grabbing the board and going and forcing some rim pressure with his drive, and then Chris Boucher being the trailer on that,
Sure.
And stuff like that. And I think, with him being a rim threat, obviously he hasn't scored around the basket much as we would like, but I think
he even taken a shot around the basket? Like, I know he hit that like floater on the run against Boston, and like it's kind of all I remember.
Yeah. So I think with Chris Boucher, he's had some really good finishes. I mean, those dives to the rim where you can, more than the finishes, I remember the yelling, right? Trying to get an N1 or taking some kind of contact. But I think with Chris Boucher, more chaos is better for him. And I think in the starting unit, not with his starting unit, with the guys that are currently in the starting unit, they're more capable of creating for him. You think of Precious Achiuwa, I think you think of Scotty Barnes. And I think that's, again, where, Pascal Siakam and Yuta Watanabe returning to the lineup and just consistently having those creators on the floor will be better for him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think, I'm really torn on the whole who do you play Boucher with between Birch and Precious thing. Like on yesterday's podcast, I think I landed on I kind of prefer him with Birch just in theory. I'm thinking about like the best we saw of Boucher last year, which in large part was when they were playing that Baines-Boucher back up front court, and it worked really well. You had the more sort of stable, ready-made rim protector when Baines was playing well, at least, which was not often. But like in theory, if you have that sort of stable guy who can kind of clean up the messes that Boucher might create while he's flying around like a maniac on the perimeter, I think that kind of works. It's a nice sort of yin and yang as opposed to only yin if you have Precious and Boucher together. I feel like there might be some pretty serious back-end meltdowns if those two were your front court. But at the same time, I also understand the desire for chaos, and we've seen chaos units really be where Boucher's thrived in the past. Think about the RHJ duo back in the 2019-20 season and all that. So I think there's arguments both ways. I don't think it's cut and dry either way. But I do think, for me, I would try to get Boucher in there with Fred as much as possible. Like, there's just not chemistry there with Dragic just yet. And I think, Boucher is such a reliant, like, pick and pop guy. And, he can be a bit of a lob threat as well, or just a roll threat in general. I think pairing him with a point guard who kind of knows his intricacies a little bit more might help kind of unlock him just a tad. But we shall see. Also, I made this point yesterday, but I'll reiterate it. I think if you're going to get Malachi Flynn in there, the best way to maximize Malachi Flynn is to run a bunch of pick and roll with him and a bunch of shooters, which they have the capability to do in that bench unit with Boucher, Yuta when he's back, Svi. They want to sub in OG and kind of stagger him with those second units. I think, I know they've gone away from pick and roll pretty substantially the last couple of years, but you go to the strengths of Malachi Flynn. That's the thing he's good at. Why not, when he's in there, maybe adapt your offense a little bit so you're not just running, quote unquote, the system all the time, and you can just let him do what he's good at. Maybe that's the way to do it there. And maybe you get the best out of both Boucher and Flynn in that case.
And I think this is where, when Nick Nurse talks about Scotty Barnes needing to turn the corner to attack, to open things up for other people, that's where it kind of impacts a player like Boucher, where the ball handler needs to be seen as a scoring threat. And then when they invite that pressure, then the kick out to a Boucher or whoever it is becomes that much more effective.
Yeah.
If Scotty Barnes, and whoever it is that's coming off that screen is looking or thinking pass first, it's a lot easier to defend that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that Boucher can definitely benefit from, that he's not necessarily in control of.
Yeah, totally. I guess quickly here, we were kind of running low on time because we've just had such compelling Chris Boucher and Malachi Flynn talk. But the question of, is there someone who is not at Nick Nurse's doghouse and maybe deserves to be there over Boucher or alongside Boucher and Flynn? Is there someone right now who, if you're Nick Nurse, you're maybe looking at, especially with Yuta Watanabe potentially coming back as early as tonight, I believe. I think he practiced yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. If Yuta's coming back, do you move someone else to the doghouse who is deserving? Is it Dragic? Is it Svi? Is it someone else? Or is basically the collection of guys that Nurse was running out right now basically what you want to see at the moment?
Yeah, so I don't think anything changes until at least Utah is back. Or at least I would want to see change. And so I think Svi is the guy that could drop out for Yuta Watanabe. We know what Utah brings to the table, that consistency on the defensive end, arguably the best closeout that the roster has. And then offensively, it just looks like he's made strides in the preseason. We'll have to see if that carries over to the regular season, because we know that's not often the case. So I think that is the one thing I would look at. And then, I think the argument for Dragic, I hear it. I've already said off the top that he's been bad, but again, it's been 4 games. It's been 5% of the season, and a veteran is absolutely going to get more leeway than that.
As he should. And also, if you're trying to trade him, sticking him on the bench probably isn't the best way to accomplish that goal either. So buckle up for a lot of Dragic, I think. And I don't think that's a bad thing. He's a good shooter. Again, he's got that sort of half-court juice that very few guys in the team have. Let's give it some time here. I bet at some point in the next couple of weeks, we'll have like a Dragic 26-point game where he does the thing he used to do against the Raptors all the time and made you go crazy. We're going to finish off here. We're going to look ahead at the game against the Pacers tonight. A bit of a weird team, kind of in a similarly strange position as the Raptors, like within the standings and all that. It's kind of an interesting measuring stick game. So we'll get to that on the other side here. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, who are making the best tasting protein bars money can buy. They are so good. They're the best tasting protein bars that I've ever had. It's not even a question, and they taste just like a candy bar. They have 9 amazing flavors in their regular lineup, including my favorite mint brownie, along with orange, which is dangerously close to a Terry's chocolate orange, except not bad for you. And also, they have limited time flavors that pop up from time to time as well. So you can go check out the site. If it's seasonally sort of themed, you might find something maybe right now as we get close to Halloween. There might be something on there. They just sent me some blueberry muffins. So I'm assuming that's going to be on the site as well soon. And I got to say, Blueberry Muffin giving Mint Brownie a run for its money as the top dog in my Built Bar house. I guess got doghouse on the brain after today's episode. Either way, all of their bars are great tasting and healthy for you as well. 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, and just 4 or 5 grams of sugar and 4 or 5 grams of net carbs in all their bars. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That is the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Vivek, the Raptors take on the Indiana Pacers tonight. The Pacers, I believe, are 1-3. They've had some overtime weirdness. They've had Chris Duarte coming in and taking like 20 shots a game, which is, I don't know if that's what you want if you're the Pacers, but that's what's been going on. They have some injury trouble as well. TJ Warren's not around. They're still dealing with the weirdness of the Turner Sabonis. It feels like this has been the same team for like 9 years. So maybe this is an easy preview, but what are you looking for as the Raptors take on the Pacers tonight, looking for their second win of the season?
I am looking for the Nate Bjorkgren revenge game. No, I'm kidding.
I'm looking forward to the bench clearing brawl that Nate Bjorkgren is sure to incite, based on the reports from last year.
Yeah. No, I think the first thing obviously is just dealing with the interior. How they cope with the Sabonis is going to be a huge challenge. I think the one thing that really encourages me so far is, last year we saw how much not being able to rebound hurt them, right?
Yeah.
And so far early on, they've been rebounding really well.
Yeah.
I believe at this point they're fourth in defensive rebounding, so I think that's something they can be really happy about. Hopefully they can keep it going. And yeah, no, I think dealing with the interior is the biggest thing. Fred VanVleet, that matchup with Malcolm Brogdon is another thing I'm looking for, because going up against bigger defenders is something that he finds really challenging. I don't think he enjoyed the matchup with Lonzo Ball too much, but I think this is another interesting challenge for him with Malcolm Brogdon. So those are probably the two main things I'm looking at. Besides that, I'm kind of just curious about the Pacers, what's changed with Rick Carlisle. I saw, anticipating what could change, I thought with the way he likes to play a spread offense, I thought Miles Turner would be more involved offensively. And then you see that 40-point game and you're saying, holy, has he unlocked something? And then he drops 4 and 5, 9 points combined over 2 games. And you're saying, all right, well, there goes that. So, I'll be looking at that just from a curiosity perspective. What about you?
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by OG tonight. I think back to last season, and probably the best OG game we saw was that game against the Pacers, where he put up like 32 and then guarded literally everyone on the floor for the entire game. I think Pascal was out of that game. They were pretty shorthanded, I think, overall. Lowry might have been gone too. And I think, there's room for OG in this game to sort of, assert himself on it, right? Like, there's no TJ Warren. It's probably going to be like Brogdon that guards him, I guess. Like maybe Chris Duarte. Like it's Jeremy Lamb. Like it's not a very loaded wing core. I mean, O'Shea Brissett might get a lot of that assignment. So I think there's room for OG to maybe sort of work on his self-creation. I think the last couple of games we've seen, most of his offense has come as the result of it being created for him. And look, he's getting himself in position to take advantage with his well-timed cuts and, just kind of always being there to wait and catch the open pass. But I do think the opportunity for him to kind of work on his individual creation might be there for him tonight without a very sturdy wing matchup. Obviously, it's going to be tough around the basket. Miles Turner, very good at blocking shots, but I think there could be, maybe he gets Sabonis in space on a switch or something like that a couple times, and you can kind of take it to him. That I'm really looking forward to watching. And I'm just kind of fascinated by the rebounding battle, like you mentioned as well, to correct you and to show exactly how good the Raptors have been so far this season. They're number 2 right now in rebounding rate behind the Memphis Grizzlies. So 55% of all rebounds have ended up in the hands of the Raptors. They are number 2 in offensive rebounding behind the Grizzlies as well, and number 5 in defensive rebounding. The Pacers are basically, 10th or 12th in all of those categories across the board. So not exactly a slouch rebounding team, but we know Miles Turner is maybe not the greatest rebounder for a guy of his size and stature. Can the Raptors kind of counter the overwhelming length and size of that interior and still kind of manage to slam the offensive boards the way they have? Because I think that's just going to be such an important part of their offensive diet this season. It's gross, it's garbagey, but like it counts, I suppose, if you put it back up and in after missing 3 times. So that's going to be a thing I'm watching for as well. And I guess like Malachi Flynn is an interesting one to watch too. Like, have the calls been heard, or is it going to still be Goran Dragic? I would assume it's still going to be Goran Dragic getting the lion's share of those point guard duties. And honestly, if Utah's back, I think that even makes it a more difficult path for Flynn to get back in, because that's just sort of wing backcourt minutes, the sort of amorphous blob of 1 through 4 minutes that are not going to be, assigned to Malachi if they're being assigned to Utah. So I think that is interesting. I'm excited to watch this game. It's the first of 2 games this week too, which is always fun. That's the one thing we're going to really miss about last year was all those little mini series you got against teams where you could kind of see those counter adjustments after the first game and see how it all played out over the course of 2 games. So I'm looking forward to seeing sort of a mini that, because it's not like the Magic are much of an obstacle in between the two. And I guess it's also, like that Bulls game Monday, it is kind of like a sort of, where do the Raptors stack up with the teams that they're kind of projected to be battling with? Maybe the Bulls are better than what we thought they were going to be, but we'll see after they have a really tough schedule coming up. Where are you at right now in terms of that sort of, it's only a week in, so we can kind of, reevaluate as we go along here, but Pacers, Bulls, Wizards, Hornets. Those teams kind of seemed like the competition for the Raptors in that play-in race. I would throw the Knicks in there as well, even though some people think the Knicks are better. I still think they're frauds. Either way, as far as that sort of collection of teams through 1 week with the Pacers and Raptors both involved, what have been your early impressions on how those are going to shake out in the standings?
I mean, I think the Bulls are taking care of business. I think that's kind of been the MO of a solid DeMar DeRozan team, right? Like they take care of all the teams that they're supposed to in the regular season.
Yeah.
And I think they might escape that play-in tournament.
Yeah.
So I think if there was one team I had to pick, it would be them. The Hornets, I think I want to watch them play a few more games. There's always that early spike that you see. I mean, Miles Bridges is playing out of his mind. He's averaging like over 25 points a game. How long is that going to last? That's something I'm curious about. So I'll kind of wait and see with them. LaMelo is obviously just incredible. But yeah, I'll kind of wait and see with them. So in terms of the teams that I would still say, with the Raptors with Pascal Siakam, I would put the Hornets there. I think the Hornets might drop down a bit. The Bulls, that level might be tough to get to. I mean, just the options that they have. I think Samson Folk talked about this a little bit. Like their event creation is something that just constantly has you on your heels, and I don't think the Raptors have anything close to that. I think the Bulls at the top of that list that you gave me. The Hornets, I think, might come down a bit just because I just can't see Miles Bridges keeping this up for an entire season. And I mean, kudos to him. I will tip my hat if he does. And if he does, then the Hornets are a much bigger problem than I'm anticipating.
Yeah, I mean, the Hornets are fun as hell. I don't really care about the results as much as I like watching LaMelo Ball throw cool lobs to Miles Bridges. That rocks. I think, I'm worried about their defense probably. And I think, of all these teams, I think the Raptors have the best defense. I think that you can very carefully or very, comfortably square away already at this point. As far as where they kind of slot in, I want to see a little bit more. Obviously, when Pascal gets back, that's going to be more telling. But I think the floor the Raptors have established without Pascal gives me a lot of hope that the Raptors can kind of be in that upper tier of that group once he's back. Like, I think they've kind of shown enough here, even though they're 1-3. There have been a lot of really positive stretches and so many instances where it was just like, oh my God, if they had Pascal here, that would have been amazing. And so feeling pretty good. And this Pacers game should be a good barometer of where they stack up. And I guess it's never too early to start thinking about like tiebreaker stuff as well. If you think you're going to be close to a team down at the end of the season, I want to beat them now. So you have that tiebreaker in your pocket if that comes to pass down the line. That feels like a good place to leave this episode. Big V, thank you so much for jumping on. It's lovely to see you, and I'll see you tonight at the game. That should be great. Anything you want people to know about, anything you want to promote?
Just the regular stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivek Jacob. You can find my work at Raptors.com and CBC Sports and Complex Canada. And that's about it. Oh, last thing I will say is hopefully there are some good vibes with this Pacers game, because the last time the Raptors won a game at Scotiabank Arena, it was the Indiana Pacers.
Is it that game, the comeback game?
No, not the comeback game.
Oh,
this was, I believe, this was the 46-point smackdown.
Oh yeah, just after the game where Lowry tried to go through George Hill's legs, if I recall. Yeah, and then and it might have been before. Then they lost that, and then they lost to the Hornets. Yeah, wow, that's crazy. I hope they can break that very, very long streak tonight. That would be swell. I will have the recap written at RaptorsHQ.com, so you can go check that out. And also subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. And on YouTube, you can subscribe there. It's very much appreciated when you go ahead and do that. And you can also subscribe to my other podcast, Basketball. It's the one I do with Katie Heindel, where we talk about sort of basketball. And today, we're going to be recording a very special spooky Halloween-themed edition, which is always a good time. We're going to be reading one of Katie's Halloween short stories. It's one of my favorite things to do every single year. So I have that to look forward to on Basketball. And that'll do it. We'll talk to you again on Thursday, as I think Katie Heindel will also join the show tomorrow if she's available to talk about the Pacers game. We'll see you then. Have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye.